Chapter 1440. So you should smile at me, then let me fall into your trap and put into action what you said just now into action, and not point out the pros and cons to make me wary. Gregory did not pull Gu Mengmeng into his arms, but took a step forward and got closer to Gu Mengmeng, saying, "You are really making things difficult for me. I still thought that I could receive some gentleness during the period when you are using me, even if it is temporary and fake. But now, it seems that you have no intention of lying to me. You don't even have any intention of using me. You said that you want to lay all your cards on the table, but you actually want to scare me off, right?" Gu Mengmeng was speechless and quietly took a small step back. She knew that if she directly rejected him, Gregory would not listen to her analysis of the pros and cons, so she pretended to say that she was willing to accept him, so that he would listen to her patiently. She originally thought that he would scold Gu Mengmeng as a scumbag, after listening to her, then turn around and leave. Who knew that this bird did not play by the rules? "I don't go down the mountain often, but it doesn't mean that I am ignorant." Gregory allowed Gu Mengmeng to take a small step back, then he took a big step forward. The distance between them was even closer than before, almost sticking to each other. "The cruel situation you mentioned just now, isn't it the most common situation in every family? Compared to those males who don't even have the chance to tell their names to their females. At least I am remembered by you, isn't it?" Gu Mengmeng was suddenly speechless. In this beast world, other than her and Sandy, the two abnormalities, the mating of females was really like what Gregory said. As long as they were pleasing to the eye, they could be accepted into the family, but after that, they would forget about them. Other than the first partner and a few especially favored ones, the females did not even know how many partners they had. Like Nina and Ellie, they really could not even remember all the names of their partners. In a male's perspective, it is only right to sacrifice everything for the female. The response and reciprocation you mentioned, I am lucky to receive it, but not my life. Wrapping his other arm around Gu Mengmeng's waist, Gregory maintained an ascetic expression as he looked at Gu Mengmeng, saying, "You don't have to come close to me. You don't even have to stand at the same spot to wait for me. If you want to retreat, I'll let you retreat. No matter how far apart you are, no matter if there are thousands of ravines or galaxies between us, these distances and obstacles will all be crossed by me. Being able to feel jealousy and heartache for the female you like is already a kind of happiness. After all, the current him did not even have the right to be jealous. Gu Mengmeng, I like you. I don't mind being your companion, pet, guardian, or even food." As Gregory spoke, he plucked a feather from his ear and handed it to Gu Mengmeng. "So, are you willing to accept me and let me become a member of your family?" Just as Gu Mengmeng was hesitating, she heard a deafening roar. Before Gu Mengmeng could react to what was happening, Oriton, who had just returned from hunting, had already thrown away the prey in his hands and started fighting with Gregory. Gu Mengmeng looked at the two of them fighting with a dumbfounded expression, but Leah just waved his tail and said, "If you want to be our guardian beast, you have to be capable enough." Gu Mengmeng pointed at Oriton and asked Leah, "This?" Chapter 1441. Gu Mengmeng was stunned for a moment before she burst out laughing. Leah was too bad, really too bad. Gu Mengmeng dared to guarantee that Oriton's definition of rice bowl was definitely the utensil used to eat. A fierce tiger on the ground and a vulture in midair were locked in a stalemate. Gu Mengmeng stared in bewilderment. Under normal circumstances, Elvis and Leah would intentionally avoid her during their battle. They rarely displayed their violent side in front of her, as if they were afraid of scaring her. But Oriton and Gregory were different. Gregory desperately needed to prove his strength to Gu Mengmeng, while Oriton was purely desperate for food. Wabi sat at the side and watched for a long time. His eyes were shining and he was itching to join in. Although there was nothing much to see in a fight between third-level beasts, as long as there was a fight to fight, he wanted to join in. Leah tugged at Wabi's arm. "The two guardian beasts are fighting for status in the family. What are you going over for?" Wabi twitched his lips. "We are both 5th level now. Shall we go out for a fight?" Leah shook his head. "I'm not going to fight with you. I have more or less figured out your moves. It won't help me accumulate much experience. After dinner, I will go out with Elvis. You can stay at home and accompany Meng Meng. Tumeng doesn't need my company. Wabiai's eyes were shining. I will go with you. Elvis is the Wolf King now. You can't beat him. Let's join forces. Leah snorted. If I join forces with you to fight my first partner, I won't be able to answer to Meng Meng no matter who wins, right? Ungrateful. Wabiai rolled his eyes at Leah, his face full of dissatisfaction. Leah knew that Wabiai was scolding him for accompanying him to level up while Gu Meng Meng was meeting the beast deity. He didn't mind and just smiled. Then he carried the meat from the pot to the dining table. The moment the bottom of the pot touched the table, Oriton and Gregory immediately stopped attacking each other. Oriton's jaws were already around Gregory's neck. If he bit down, Gregory's head would have to be moved. Meanwhile, Gregory's steel-like claws were already pressed against Oriton's chest. If his claws landed, Oriton's heart would definitely be smashed into pieces. Both of them were holding on to each other's vital points. It could be considered a draw. Gu Meng Meng took out a bowl and scooped 6 bowls of meat. She placed the first bowl on her seat. This was the rule. The female was the head of the household and had the priority to enjoy the meat. The second bowl was given to Elvis. This was the authority and welfare of the first partner and could not be disputed. The third bowl was given to Leah and the fourth to Wabiai. The fifth and sixth bowls were placed at the left and right corners of the table. Oriton Gregory, stop fooling around. Let's eat. It was a tacit acknowledgement of Gregory's status as a guardian beast. Gregory walked to Gu Meng Meng's side and wanted to pull her into his arms for a hug. But Elvis retracted his arm and directly pulled Gu Meng Meng into his embrace. A pair of sinister eyes looked at Gregory and said lightly, "She can hug you, but you can't hug her." Gregory was taken aback for a moment before he smiled and nodded. He was a guardian beast, not a partner. Naturally, he did not have the right to hug her whenever he wanted. Not to mention him. Even Leah could not carry Gu Meng Meng as long as Elvis did not agree. He was a little disappointed, but not sad. Chapter 1442. Gu Meng Meng lowered her head and smiled helplessly. Your understanding of selfishness is too one-sided. Gregory maintained his posture of handing out the feather, and just looked at Gu Meng Meng quietly. Gu Meng Meng looked up and met Gregory's eyes. She said, "I said those words to you not to scare you off, but to let myself accept your kindness with a clear conscience. No matter how much pain you will suffer in the future, I can still say honestly, see, I told you long ago. You did all of this willingly, you can't blame me." Gregory's eyes widened. Gu Meng Meng didn't take the feather from Gregory. She just looked into his eyes. "It's not too late to regret now," Gregory chuckled. He took a step forward and placed the feather on Gu Meng Meng's right ear. Then he smiled. "You keep emphasizing how selfish you are, and how heartless you will be towards me in the future. You are not trying to scare me. You are afraid. You are afraid to see me in pain, and afraid that you will soften because of guilt and self-blame. Your disguise is too clumsy. You can't hide it from me." Gregory took a step back and put some distance between them. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, I won't purposely do something that looks tragic to coerce you. On the contrary, I will show you my strong points so that you will like me because I am outstanding enough. You will accept me and mate with me. Birds have their own pride. I love you, but I am not petty." Leah snorted. He scooped a piece of meat and sent it into Gu Meng Meng's mouth. "You have to look at your face to make someone fall in love with you. I don't love you to begin with, so naturally I won't pity you." Gu Meng Meng face-bombed. Gregory had stepped on Lee's landmine. After all, Leah had used all sorts of methods to make her change her mind. In the end, he had almost jumped into a brazier and burned himself to death. Gu Meng Meng didn't say anything. She just quietly ate the meat in her bowl. Gregory didn't contradict Leah. After all, Leah was his mate while he was just a guardian beast. There was a difference in their statuses. After 2 mouthfuls, Gregory placed the bowl down. He looked at Gu Meng Meng. "There is one more thing. I think I should confess in advance." Gu Meng Meng looked up at Gregory, waiting for him to continue. Gregory took a deep breath and said, "The Fox King has already looked for me many times. He hopes that I can arrange a bird to send him to the Moda Mountains. He also wants the love of the sky. Gu Mingming was confused. Gregory shook his head and said, "It doesn't seem like it. From what he said, it seems like he wants to stay on Moda Mountains for a while." Gu Mingming frowned. If it wasn't for the love of the sky, he wanted to stay in the Moda Mountains for a while? Cole was not the kind of person who had the time to travel. Gu Mingming rested her chin on her hand and thought for a moment. Then she asked, "Did he ask you about the other treasures on the Moda Mountains?" Gregory shook his head and said, "He only said that he wanted to go up the Moda Mountains and did not mention anything else." "What are your conditions?" Gu Mingming understood Cole too well. If he wanted to rope Gregory in, he could not just rely on his mouth. He must have used threats and promises. Gregory looked at Gu Mingming and smiled. "You? Me?" Gu Mingming asked back. Gregory nodded and said, "He said that as long as he can successfully reach the Moda Mountains, he can let me have you." "How?" Gu Mingming asked. Chapter 1443. Gu Mingming thought about it and shook her head. "No need. Cole is very dangerous. You should avoid him in the future." Leah caressed Gu Mingming's brows. "Don't worry. Leave Cole's matters to me." Gu Mingming nodded and did not say anything else. Gregory received Lee's gaze and did not say anything. He just silently picked up his chopsticks and continued eating. He could not compare to Leah in terms of ability, trustworthiness, and weight in Gu Mingming's heart. He still had a long way to go before he could establish a good image in Gu Mingming's heart. After lunch, Gu Mingming asked for a weasel bristle from Elvis. Then, she asked Leah to use a fishbone needle to pierce a hole in her right ear. She then pierced Gregory's feather through the root before tying a dead knot through her own ear hole. That was how it became a feather earring. Because Gu Mingming frowned when she pierced her ear, Elvis and Leah glared at Gregory fiercely. Gregory's heart ached when Leah pierced Gu Mingming's earlobe. It was as if the needle was not piercing Gu Mingming's ear but his heart. But after that sharp and subtle pain, a warm current spread throughout his body. It was an indescribable feeling. It was as if the bones and blood forged from the cold wind and snow of Moda Mountains had suddenly melted in his body. Blood and bone marrow started to flow in those icicle-like bones. Inch by inch, the ice and snow melted in his body at a speed visible to the naked eye. Suddenly, he seemed to understand a word. It was called warmth. That life that was as pale as the ice and snow seemed to have instantly turned into the warmth of spring. Yeah, Gregory knew that the drop of blood that dripped down Gu Mingming's earlobe had nourished his entire world and given him a new life. From the moment Gu Mingming wore that feather on her right ear, he was truly alive. Stop glaring at him. I can't give him the mating mark. This can be considered as compensation. Gu Mingming tugged at Lee's and Elvis's hands. Then she smiled. And it doesn't hurt. Look, it's fine. With that, Gu Mingming shook her head. The feather swayed with the wind, accentuating the curve of Gu Mingming's neck. Gregory cleared his throat, then took out something from behind him and passed it to Gu Mingming. This is... That thing was carefully wrapped in a beast's skin. Gu Mingming opened the beast's skin as she received it. She was stunned for a moment before she smiled knowingly. I didn't expect it to return to my hands in the end. Yes, you said I could trick a wife into coming back. I thought about it. I don't want to give it to anyone but you. Gregory did not have the right to hug Gu Mingming, but now he had the right to openly look at her with deep affection. He no longer had to worry about being rejected by her because his gaze was too explicit, nor did he have to worry about anyone seeing through his emotions from his gaze. Gu Mingming shook the feather fan made from Melodi's feathers and chuckled. Although I made it, it still belongs to you. So thank you for the present, I like it very much. Yes. Gregory was at a loss. Although he was engaged, he had never imagined what his life would be like after he became a partner. Yesterday, he was still worried about being chased away by her, but today he was already a member of her family. Chapter 1444. The messenger of the beast deity's family recruiting a new male was a big deal to the entire beast world. Moreover, she had accepted Gregory as a show for everyone to see, so there was no reason for her to keep it a secret. So Leah stepped forward to prepare for a grand bonfire party 3 days later, in the name of sending off the messenger of the beast deity. Usually, after Gu Mengmeng passed the winter in Sauter and hosted the first hunting ritual, she would head to other places, either back to St. Nazir, Zacharias, or back to the Snake King Valley. Anyway, she would not stay in Sauter for 2 consecutive seasons. But because they had to go to the Moda Mountains during the dry season this year, coupled with the fact that Elvis, the Beast King, had just descended, many wolf beasts did not manage to rush to Sauter in time. So Gu Mengmeng decided to stay for a longer period of time. Now that the rainy season was halfway through, Gu Mengmeng and the rest naturally had to start their journey to the Mota Mountains. As Oraton and Little Shit had to follow, it was impossible for Gregory to bring them by air. And if they were to travel by land, it would naturally take a longer time. After all, they could not travel in a straight line. And besides sending Gu Mengmeng off, the other purpose of this bonfire party was to introduce Gregory to everyone. To tell everyone that there was a new male in the messenger of the beast deity's family this year. He had wings and could fly. So after everyone sat down by the bonfire, only Elvis and Leah sat at the main bonfire. There was an empty spot in the middle and Gu Mengmeng, who should be sitting there, was nowhere to be seen. Sandy's entire family had also arrived by the main bonfire, but Gu Mengmeng was not there. So the people below started to whisper, saying that it was clearly a farewell for the messenger of the beast deity, so why was the main character missing? Just as everyone was feeling puzzled, a bird's cry came from the night sky. Everyone looked up and saw a huge vulture circling in the sky. After 2 to 3 rounds, it landed steadily in front of the main bonfire. Gu Mengmeng jumped down from the vulture's back. Then the vulture transformed into a human, and followed behind Gu Mengmeng, sitting at the main bonfire together with her. Gu Mengmeng sat between Elvis and Leah, while Oraton sat beside Leah, while Vulture Gregory sat beside Elvis. Silence. Even the sound of the wind blowing against the bonfire was exceptionally obvious. The first person to react was actually Cole. Walking forward, he looked at Gu Mengmeng and placed his right hand in front of his left chest. He bowed and said, "Congratulations, Master. You got yourself another beautiful partner." Gu Mengmeng really wanted to throw a, "What does it have to do with you?" But she did not say anything. Firstly, she could not be bothered to waste her saliva on Cole. Secondly, she had promised Leah that she would let him handle Cole's matters. So Gu Mengmeng just snuggled into Elvis's arms and did not even roll her eyes at Cole. Leah was satisfied with Gu Mengmeng's disregard towards Cole, but he pretended to rebuke and shook his head helplessly. Standing up, he cupped his fists at Cole and said, "Thank you, mighty Fox King. He's just a guardian beast, not a good partner." Cole narrowed his eyes and looked at Leah with a dangerous gaze. His breath was icy cold and his smile was filled with malice. "Ninth brother has leveled up? Heh, congratulations, you bought level 5. With Agu's help, I'm sure the day you break through the Beast King bloodline is just around the corner." Leah smiled but did not reply. He just looked at Gu Mengmeng lovingly. Aside from the topic. Chapter 1445. Turning his body sideways, Leah said, "In the past 1,000 years there were very few beast kings. After all, there was only Snake alone. But now, just our family alone has 2 beast kings, so I don't feel that it's so precious anymore. So I don't really care if the beast is a beast king or not. As long as I can accompany Gu Meng, I will be satisfied." Cole narrowed his eyes. Logically speaking, with his ability to read people's minds, it was impossible for him not to see that Leah was purposely provoking him. But he could not control the burning rage in his chest. The feather earring on Gu Mengmeng's right ear was really an eyesore. He should not be bothered by it. No matter how many males Gu Mengmeng had by her side now, they were just temporary playthings. After he passed through the doors of time and space and ruled that world, he would be the only god in Gu Mengmeng's eyes. He would personally witness Gu Mengmeng abandoning Elvis and Leah for him, personally cutting off that mark on the back of her neck. She would personally kill all her pets to please him, then step on the fresh blood like a blooming poppy, emitting a faint fragrance by his side. They were just guardian beasts. How could they be worth his anger? But unfortunately, he could not control himself. He had already accepted Elvis and Lee's existence, After all, that was before he met her. But Gregory, just a mere Gregory, what right did he have to gain her favor? This evil fire burned so intensely that Lee's simple provocation caused Cole to exude a ruthless aura all over him. The firewood in the bonfire crackled, sparks bursting out, but they were swallowed by the darkness in an instant. The glimmer was not even as bright as a firefly. Leah chuckled and looked at Cole innocently. What's wrong with the mighty Fox King? Your beast pressure is leaking out. Our two guardian beasts are only 3rd level and can't withstand your scare. Especially that Gregory, he just joined the family and our Gu Mingming loves him. If you scare him, Gu Mingming's heart will ache. Lee's words were like throwing a lighter into a nuclear explosion. Then, feeling that it was not cool enough, he turned to look at Gu Mingming and winked at her, asking, "Right, Gu Mingming?" Gu Mingming felt awkward as if she had eaten *T. She still had to be responsible for flaunting their love? Putting on a show for Cole? What's wrong with him? Did he buy a ticket? But Leah had already said it. If Gu Mingming did not cooperate, wouldn't she be exposing Lee's shortcomings? Gu Mingming waved at Gregory, and he naturally went around Elvis to the other side of Gu Mingming without a word. Gu Mingming passed the meat Leah had roasted for her to Gregory and said gently, "You must be tired after flying for half a day just now, aren't you? You eat first. Don't worry about those lunatics. I don't believe that anyone has the ability to hurt you in front of me." When Gu Mingming said the last sentence, she looked at Cole coldly. There was no beast pressure, but it still managed to extinguish Cole's flames. Chapter 1446. As for Cole, even though he had become a beast king, he could not wash away his identity as a stray beast, so he was naturally extremely afraid of Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming's gaze successfully extinguished Cole's arrogance, but it was like a pimple that was not squeezed clean, leaving an obvious pimple mark on his face. Even without touching, he knew that there was a hard lump there that could not be removed. The corners of Cole's mouth twitched uncontrollably, but he still succumbed to Gu Mingming's pressure. He smiled apologetically. It was Cole's carelessness. I did not control my beast pressure well, and scared the Great Messenger's guardian beast. Please punish me, Great Messenger. Although Gregory was not as smart as Leah, he understood what they were doing. But a vulture soaring in the sky, shuttling through the howling cold wind and piercing ice and snow, actually had to pretend to be a weak male who was frightened, just because Cole leaked a little beast pressure. This was really. Gu Mingming patted Gregory's hand and suddenly smiled. Seeing how Gregory, who clearly had a proud and unyielding character, was forced to play along with Lee's weak feeling. His face was almost cramping up, but he did not pretend to be frightened. The word difficult was written all over his face, but he still tried his best to play along with Leah. Gu Mingming unkindly felt that it was a little funny, but also very considerate. The bird's tribe had their own pride. Gregory had personally told her that he would not do those miserable things to make her accept him out of guilt and self-reproach. Even though this was a path that Leah had walked on and personally proved to be effective. But now, he was willing to give up this pride just to play along with Lee's plan. Gregory was momentarily stunned by Gu Mingming's laughter. He was a little dejected. Sorry, I really don't know how to act weak. He did not finish his sentence, but he believed that Gu Mingming understood what he meant. Gu Mingming shook her head. It's not the first time that the mighty Fox King has been so arrogant. You are not the first and will not be the last to be looked down upon by him. Back then, before he was the Fox King, he dared to kidnap my Leah and beat him back to his original form behind my back, before sending him back to show off to me. I'm already being very polite by only saying a few words of contempt to you. Obviously, Gu Mingming had forcefully twisted Gregory's apologies so that everyone present would think that Gregory was apologizing because he did not look strong enough, and became Cole's way of insulting the messenger of the beast deity. The people of the Snow Fox clan broke out in cold sweat. Ever since the beginning of the winter hunt, the messenger of the beast deity did not bring along the Snow Fox clan for anything. It was obvious that she was deliberately distancing herself from them. The 16 tribes and the Wolf tribe joined forces, making it difficult for the Snow Fox tribe to fight alone. She had originally wanted to use this night campfire party to mend the relationship between the Snow Fox clan and the messenger of the beast deity. However, she did not know what was wrong with this fox king. He actually went to provoke the messenger of the beast deity, and even made her start to dig up old scores. Cole clenched his fists and glared fiercely at Gregory, as if he was looking at a dead man. Agu was actually talking to him like this because of that bird. He was the strongest male by Agu's side, and only he was qualified to be a match for a female like Agu. Taking 2 steps forward, Cole wanted to snatch Gu Meng Meng from Elvis's arms as if he was possessed. Chapter 1447. The storm in Cole's eyes did not escape Gu Meng Meng's eyes. If not for the fact that the soul of the forest had completely merged with him and the bewitching spell that Cole had placed on Qi Xian, she would have killed him without hesitation. But now it was not the right time. She had to gather all 7 treasures before she could kill Cole. The sequence could not be wrong. Gu Meng Meng glared at him coldly. "How dare you?" Cole's body went limp, and he immediately knelt on the ground. This overwhelming pressure made Cole unable to lift his head. But just like a trapped beast, the thicker the chains locking him up, the stronger his desire to break free. Cole could not resist Gu Meng Meng's strong pressure, but this made him want to pounce on her even more. He wanted to possess her and see her submit to him in all sorts of ways. "Elder Eugene, escort your king back to rest. Don't spoil my mood here." Gu Meng Meng's gaze was cold as she spoke softly. She swept a glance across them, revealing a nonchalant indifference, but also an unquestionable authority. Yes. Elder Eugene, who had been called out, crawled to Cole's side. Together with another elder, they supported him and half-dragged Cole away. After this small episode, the night campfire party continued. Gu Meng Meng's appearance at such events was usually to show her face and tell everyone that she was not dead and was still alive. Today she had another goal, which was to introduce Grace. Now that both goals had been accomplished, Gu Meng Meng wanted to leave. After all, every night campfire party would eventually turn into a barbaric version of the "if you are the one" matchmaking session. Then it would turn into a collective applause for love. The scene was a little painful to the eyes. Gu Meng Meng wanted to bid farewell to Sandy and leave first, but before she could lift her leg, she saw someone slowly walking toward Sandy. Gu Meng Meng felt a tightness around her waist. It was Leah holding on to her. Gu Meng Meng turned back to look at Leah. Leah used his chin to point in Sandy's direction. Gu Meng Meng followed Lee's gaze and saw a snow fox standing leisurely in front of Sandy's campfire. He was holding onto a bouquet of fresh flowers and smiling in an appropriate manner, giving off the vibe of an elegant young master. "Sandy, this is for you." The one holding the flowers was none other than Arnold, who had been standing at the entrance of Sandy's territory for a few days. Sandy was stunned. She thought that Arnold had given up, and was even relieved. Who knew why he was here again? Sandy peeked at Gu Meng Meng with a troubled expression. Gu Meng Meng shrugged her shoulders, not understanding what was going on. Leah whispered into Gu Meng Meng's ear. He promised not to stand at the borders of Sandy's territory anymore. But today is the night campfire party and anyone can confess to the female they like. We have no reason to stop him. Gu Meng Meng face-bombed and looked at Sandy helplessly. Arnold acted as if he did not see the exchange between Sandy and Gu Meng Meng. He just chuckled. "I just saw a beautiful flower and thought of the beautiful you, so I plucked it for you. Don't feel pressured, I won't confess to you." Sandy was speechless. The corners of Gu Meng Meng's mouth twitched as she thought to herself. Unaccountably solicitous, sending flowers but not confessing? Does that mean you won't take responsibility after flirting with me? Stinking hooligan. Chapter 1448. Arnold completely ignored Hodgson's provocation, and just smiled at the flowers scattered all over the ground. Then he said to Sandy, "Since these flowers can be placed on your path, I did not pluck them for nothing. I saw that you ate a lot of roasted meat for dinner, so you should feel a little greasy. I placed 2 chrysanthemums in the small bamboo cup you placed on the table, and mixed it with honey. Then I made a cup of water with them. You should feel better after you drink it. The Fox King does not seem to be in a good condition today. I need to accompany my father to the Fox King to listen to his instructions, so I will take my leave first." With that, without waiting for Sandy to reply, Arnold turned around gracefully and walked out. After taking a few steps, he stopped and tilted his head slightly to look up at the moon. Sandy, look. Sandy instinctively looked up and followed Arnold's gaze to the moon. She did not see anything different, so she looked at Arnold in confusion. She met Arnold's affectionate gaze and gentle smile. His lips curved into a golden line, drawing out the proportions of his face beautifully. His voice was seductive as he said, "Just now we saw the same moonlight." There was nothing after that. Leaving behind a satisfied smile, he left. Gu Mingming had good eyesight, and could clearly see Sandy's blushing face from such a distance. That chubby little hand instinctively covered her heart as she stared at Arnold's departing figure, unable to look away. Gu Mingming frowned. The males in the beast world were good at everything except for the fact that they were almost non-existent in romance. So although Sandy had more than 10 partners who would stand in front of her to protect her in times of danger, none of them would tease her like this. But how could there be so many life and death situations for them to perform? This kind of harmless yet romantic trick was too tempting for Sandy. After a long while, when Arnold's figure had long disappeared, Sandy slowly looked away. She did not look at her partners but turned to face Gu Mingming. Her watery eyes were filled with helplessness and her lips trembled, but she could not say a word. Gu Mingming took a deep breath and walked over to hug Sandy. "What's the matter? If you have something to say, then say it. What's the taboo between us?" Sandy did not feel too good and her voice was filled with a faint sense of forbearance as she said, "Gu Mingming, I seem to have fallen for Arnold, but I cannot mate with him. He is from the Snow Fox tribe." Gu Mingming's heart skipped a beat. She cupped Sandy's little face and looked at her. "Are you dumb? The females in the beast world chose partners based on their mood. What did it have to do with the other party's race? Have you forgotten? Who was the one who told me that Lil Miss was in a good mood and wanted to mate, so you just lay down and wait? What? When you were teaching me, you were full of it, but when it came to yourself, you became a coward." Sandy was not as eloquent as Gu Mingming. Her heart was in a mess and she could not think of a solution. But after hearing Gu Mingming's nonchalant explanation, she suddenly felt that her worries were not as serious as she had thought. She smiled and said, "Let's talk about it later. Maybe I won't like him after 2 days?" Chapter 1449. Gu Mingming tugged at Sandy's little hand and whispered into her ear, "If you like him and believe that he really likes you and is willing to mate with him, then just do it. Don't worry about the race." Sandy tilted her head and looked at Gu Mingming, asking, "Really?" Gu Mingming nodded seriously. Then her gaze landed on Leah and she smiled, saying, "After I retrieve the love of the sky from the Mota Mountains, the next step will be to retrieve the spirit of the rocky cliffs to activate Lee's Beast King bloodline. By then, when Leah, the legitimate Fox King, descends, how will Cole, the stray Beast King, be able to rule the Fox clan? Moreover," Gu Mingming smiled and said, "I can't allow him to live for so long." Sandy twirled her fingers and hesitated for a long time, before saying, "Then I will wait." Gu Mingming looked at Sandy in confusion, not knowing what she was waiting for. Sandy smiled and said, "I will wait for the day Leah becomes the Beast King. When you get rid of Cole, and the Snow Fox clan truly becomes a family with us, then I will accept Arnold. Gu Mingming, I have done something wrong to you once in this lifetime, and I don't want to do it a second time. That feeling of not being able to face you is too unbearable. More unbearable than losing anything else." Gu Mingming knew that what Sandy meant by letting her down was that she had stopped Colin from following Elvis and Leah to fight Cole head-on. Instead, she had grabbed onto Cole with all her might and escaped using the route that the females had used to escape. She had no choice but to do so. Gu Mingming had already said many times that Sandy did not do anything wrong, and she did not blame her. If their positions were reversed, she would also not let Elvis or Leah take such a risk for another female. Of course, if the person in danger was Sandy, it was possible that she would rush forward herself, but she would never let Elvis or Leah fight an opponent that they knew they could not defeat. What was the difference between that and pushing him to his death? Gu Mingming had never felt that anyone had the obligation to risk their life for her. What's more, Colin was only her guardian and her friend at that time, not her man. But this matter was a dead knot in Sandy's heart that could not be untied no matter what. So all these years, as long as it was for Gu Mingming, Sandy could tolerate and do anything. This made Gu Mingming's heart ache, but there was nothing she could do. Helpless, Gu Mingming could not do anything to Sandy when she was stubborn, so she could only smile and say, "Don't worry, I won't let you wait for too long." Sandy nodded with a smile. The two of them hugged each other and chatted for a long time. The next morning, Gu Mingming and the rest departed from Sauter. The atmosphere in the conference room was terrifyingly low. Cole had thrown a huge tantrum and was now sitting on the main seat, looking maliciously at the group of elders who were kneeling on the ground and shivering. Weren't you guys unwilling to be suppressed by the Wolf clan? Now that their Wolf King has left and that motley crew is in our territory, it's clearly a situation where we're at the mercy of others. Yet, you're advising me to reconsider while trembling in fear? What are you thinking about? Why don't you tell me? What should I be thinking about? Cole smacked his hand and the armrest of the stone chair was smashed into pieces, sending debris flying everywhere. Chapter 1450. Agu. Cole suddenly smiled. His mood became extremely good. He closed his eyes, as if he could see Gu Mingming's pained expression. That pair of eyes must be as red and seductive as a blooming red spider lily. That hatred must be the most beautiful expression on her face. Curling his lips, Cole said leisurely, "He will see the reality clearly and submit to me with unwillingness and hatred. He will be tamed by me and become my most perfect trophy." Slaughtering the Wolf clan. You still have to ask if I agree to it. The meeting room door was pushed open and Qi swaggered in. He nonchalantly picked up a small stone from the ground and tossed it up before catching it firmly. The smile on his face was 30% provocative and 70% confident. He looked at Cole and said, "I told you long ago that your opponent is me. My mother just left and you can't sit still anymore. Tsk, you can't keep your cool. I am starting to wonder if I have overestimated you." Seeing Qi, Cole's expression froze. He narrowed his eyes and did not say a word. Qi leaned against the wall, and with the unruly demeanor of a hedonistic youth, he tossed the small stone and said, "I am not a soft-hearted person like my mother. I don't believe that humans are good by nature, and people will not offend me. I only believe in striking first and gaining the upper hand. I would rather betray everyone in the world." Cole was not angry. Instead, he had a gratified smile on his face. He nodded and said, "You are indeed a child that I have taught so. You have already instructed the Wolf clan to kill the entire Fox clan in one night? Kill them all." Qi chuckled and said, "They will be my daddy Lee's tribesmen in the future. Why would I kill them?" Cole narrowed his eyes and his anger leaked out. "You also think that Leah can successfully activate the Beast King bloodline, right?" Cole asked coldly. Qi looked as if he had heard a joke and retorted, "Don't tell me you think it is impossible? Don't forget, my mother is the messenger of the beast deity. If she can activate my father's Beast King bloodline, she can naturally activate Daddy Lee's." Cole stood up and approached Qi step by step. His rage engulfed him as he said word by word, "Let me tell you, I would rather destroy the entire Fox clan than give it to that bastard Leah." Qi threw the small stone in his hand at the Snow Fox elder who was kneeling on the ground and asked with a smile, "Did you see that? This is the Fox King that you are loyal to. In the future, when my Daddy Lee's Beast King bloodline is activated, you guys can decide who to acknowledge and who to follow." Cole narrowed his eyes and clenched his fists. The sound of bones cracking could be heard from behind him. The elder who was hit by Qishuan's little stone had turned into a pile of meat paste. His bones broke into pieces inch by inch in his body and were wrapped in his skin. Blood slowly flowed out from his body, like a ferocious tentacle looking for the next target to steal his soul. "Tsk, the wrath of the Beast King?" Qi pinched his nose and took a step back. "There's no point in scaring me. You also know that the soul of the forest has already been fully unleashed in your body. Both of us have two lives in the same body, and we are mutually restraining each other. In the past, if you died, I would be buried with you. But if I died, you would be fine. But now, if anything happens to me, you will have to accompany me to the river of helplessness. Chapter 1451. Qixuan shook his head, still smiling. You really didn't take my words to heart. I said before, I only care about my mother in this world. As long as she is fine, I don't care about anyone else's life or death, including myself. As Qixuan said that, his sharp claws sliced towards his own neck. He did not hold back or hesitate in his speed and strength. Cole did not doubt that Qixuan was bluffing. He grabbed Qixuan's wrist. Aren't you afraid that your mother will cry if you die? Qixuan laughed. Haven't you figured out the situation? You can use me to threaten my mother because she is soft-hearted. But you can't use my mother to threaten me because I know, if I die, even if my mother cries, I won't be able to see her. The only ones who will have a headache are my father and Li's father. Using my little life to drag you, the Fox King, to die with me, no matter how I look at it, it's a good deal. Don't even think about it. Cole said word by word. Qixuan brushed Cole's hand away. See? This is the difference between you and me. I am not afraid of death, so I am not afraid of you dying. But you seem to have many great ambitions that you have yet to complete. So you are afraid of death, and also afraid that I will die. Not only can you not kill me now, you have to watch over me, protect me, and prevent me from suddenly dying. But unfortunately, I am not an obedient child. In my mother's words, this is called the rebellious phase. The more you don't want me to die, the more I feel that there is no meaning in living. Cole narrowed his eyes and took a step forward. Qixuan took 2 steps back in alarm. You used the bewitching spell on me once, and my mother also used it on me once. Don't tell me you think that I will fall into the same trap thrice? Qixuan could clearly see Cole's veins throbbing. This was a sign that he was extremely angry, but Qixuan remained extremely calm. He maintained an appropriate distance, and did not look at Cole's eyes. He just said leisurely, I will be staying in Sauter for a while, so I came to greet the Fox King in advance. I am different from my 2 brothers. Not only do I not like to keep things to myself, I also get easily irritable. Perhaps it was because he had been around stray beasts for too long that he had developed a desire to be the most powerful. Unfortunately, as a mere second-grade beast, there are many things that don't go my way. So, if something doesn't go my way, I don't want to live anymore. You threatened me. It was not a question but a statement. Cole was clearly infuriated by Qixuan. He had never expected that one day, he would be manipulated by someone else, and by a second-level orc at that. Qixuan didn't deny it. He just shrugged and said, If that's how you interpret it, I have no objections. But my mom said that one must be polite and know how to be polite before using force. I'm just here to inform you that I'll be staying in Sauter until my mom returns. From time to time, I will attack you or do something that will cause trouble for you. But you have to control your subordinates. Don't ever do anything that will make me unhappy. After all, my life is very precious, and I am very irritable. With that, Qixuan grinned and turned to leave, ignoring Cole's twisted expression behind him. He was here to warn Cole that if he dared to cause any trouble when Gu Mengmeng was not around, he would drag Cole down with him at the cost of his own life. Cole had used him to threaten Gu Mengmeng for so many years. Now the tables have turned. Chapter 1452. Cole took a deep breath and clenched his fists. Send someone to keep an eye on him. Don't let him make any mistakes. Then, the matter of attacking the Wolf Clan. Eugene probed. Cole gritted his teeth. Let's discuss it in the long run. 2 flowers bloomed, one on each side. There was still 1.5 months before the dry season. With Gu Mengmeng and the rest's speed, it was more than enough for them to reach the Mota Mountains before the dry season. So with their usual habits of touring and doing proper business, they did not feel too tired along the way. Although Gregory had flown a few times to Sauter from the Mota Mountains, he had always flown in a straight line from the sky. This kind of slow and steady walk was a new experience for him. There was a huge difference between looking at things from this angle and from a bird's eye view from the sky. With Elvis around, Gu Mingming had always been the type to not bring her feet along. After a morning's journey, they had already walked out of Sauter's territory. It had to be said that Sauter's territory after the 16 tribes submitted to them was ridiculously huge. Oriton automatically took charge of hunting while Elvis carried Gu Mingming under the shade of a tree. Ever since Leah had risen to the 5th level, Wabi finally found an opponent who was on par with him. So whenever he was free, he would drag Leah along to spar with him. Leah also wanted to level up quickly and naturally would not shirk his duty. So when Oriton went hunting, Leah and Wabi started sparring on the empty ground. After all, Wabi had been beaten up by Snake for many years, and had been at the peak of the 5th level for over 800 years. Leah, a newly advanced 5th level beast, was still slightly weaker than him. But he was already much better than the rest. Gregory was at a loss. He did not know where his position in this family was. When everyone was doing their own things in unison, he felt rather uneasy. Gu Mingming felt indebted to Gregory on the matter of mating, so she naturally treated him better in other areas to make it up to him. Seeing his uneasiness, she waved him over to sit beside Elvis. They watched Leah and Wabi fight and chatted at the same time. Actually, Saint Nazir also had a bird called Quinton. It was an eagle beast. When I first arrived, I had some friction with his mate, and I almost died at his hands. Gu Mingming said nonchalantly. At that time, I already knew that there were very few birds in the beast world, and they were an important fighting force. So when Ian and the rest joined Saint Nazir, we gladly accepted. Quinton. Grace frowned and repeated the name, biting on it. Gu Mingming tilted her head and looked at Gregory, asking, It's strange, aren't all your birds tribe members in Mota Mountains? Why is Quinton at the foot of the mountain? Gregory looked at Gu Mingming in silence and did not reply. Gu Mingming was a little confused. What's wrong? It's a secret. You can't tell me? Gregory shook his head and said, It's not a secret. If you go up to Mota Mountains, you will find out sooner or later. Ha! Gu Mingming did not understand. Chapter 1453. Gu Mingming laughed dryly and said, So? Gregory said, So he made use of his position to descend the mountain without permission, and met a female who had wings but could not fly. For that female, he abandoned the Mota Mountains and joined the Walking Beast tribe. What the heck? Gu Mingming face-bombed and said. Which means if he did not get together with Nina that year, then the one who came to Sauter to look for me is very likely to be him, right? No. Gregory said. As long as there is a male born in the Vulture tribe that can receive the signal, his position as the leader will immediately be taken away. So, the one destined to meet you is still me. This is fate. Gu Mingming smiled and thought to herself that it was not a good thing that you were destined to meet me. But Gu Mingming did not say this out loud. She just had an idea and suddenly grasped another important point. Gu Mingming jumped up from Elvis's arms and looked at Gregory with her eyes wide open. She said, You were not born when Quinton became the leader, so you. How old are you? 10 years old. Gregory answered calmly, but Gu Mingming felt like she was struck by lightning. Looking up, Gu Mingming shouted angrily, Father! Must you teach me to be a pervert? Gu Mingming's shout frightened not only the beasts, but even Wabi and Leah, who were fighting, stopped and walked to Gu Mingming's side. They looked at Gu Mingming and then at Gregory and asked, What happened? Elvis chuckled and gave Leah a look. He pointed at Gregory and said, Age problem. Leah had a look of understanding. Previously at the Snake King Valley, she knew that Elvis was 3 years younger than her and suffered a huge blow. Now this Gregory Gu Mingming was 18 when she transmigrated, and was already 22 this year. Then at the advanced age of 22, she harmed a 10-year-old male under her father's instigation. Gu Mingming grabbed her hair and squatted on the ground, muttering, I don't have the face to see anyone. I really don't have the face to see him this time. I should be arrested and shot for 5 minutes. What the hell is going on? Leah squatted beside Gu Mingming, like a child reaching out his hand to poke at a shell washed up by the waves. The method of calculating age in the beast world is different from your world. A normal male would be an adult at the age of 2 or 3. 10 years old isn't that young anymore. Look at Sandy's Jerry, he's only 7 years old this year. Gu Mengmeng buried her head in her knees and twisted her body to face the other side, refusing to lift her head. Leah walked to the other side of Gu Mengmeng and poked her, saying, "It's all my fault. In the future, when we expand our family, I will definitely check their ages clearly. I don't want anyone below 15 years old. Okay?" Gu Mengmeng shook her head and said, 25 no, I don't want anyone below 30 years old. Leah narrowed his eyes and said, "Almost no single males can live to 30 years old. Then we won't expand the family." Gu Mengmeng said in a low and muffled voice, refusing to lift her head no matter what. Leah sighed and said, "I originally wanted to give Barit a title next year. After all, he had already guarded you for 4 years and helped you to go to the platform of the deity's punishment, and entrusted his life to you. To give him something to look forward to so that he won't be too affected by Gregory's addition. But from what you said, it's obvious that Barit has no chance. Sigh, that fellow is really pitiful. I wonder how upset he will be after hearing about Gregory's matter." Digression. Chapter 1454. Ever since she found out about Gregory's age, Gu Mengmeng started to feel awkward, and could not look him in the eye. Wabi-ai mocked Gu Mengmeng along the way, not because she was an old cow eating young grass, but because she only realized she was eating young grass after swallowing it. Gregory also expressed his helplessness. Being young was also his fault. In the past, he was the youngest in the whole family and was very worried. Every time Wabi-ai mentioned his age, Gu Mengmeng would fly into a rage. This caused Elvis to feel very inferior, and felt that he had embarrassed Gu Mengmeng. But now there was Gregory, who was even younger than him. He suddenly felt very disappointed. How should he put it? Gu Mengmeng's face was only so big. He would rather embarrass himself than let others embarrass him. There seemed to be a position that had been snatched away by Gregory for no reason. The group of people who were originally on a sightseeing tour became even more amusing because of Gu Mengmeng's awkwardness. A month passed by quickly, and they arrived at the foot of the Mota Mountains unknowingly. The scenery here was very strange. Gu Mengmeng was standing on black soil and green grass. Less than 20 steps in front of her was a clear stream that seemed to meander down from the sky. She could feel the bone-chilling coldness of the water without even touching it. It was also a stream, but it was completely different from the stream in Saint Nazaire. The stream in Saint Nazaire was slow and soft. It was a little like the flow and curves of the silk in the Dove chocolate advertisements, giving off a slow and romantic feeling. But this stream was different. It was swift and swift. Perhaps it was because of the jagged rocks at the bottom of the stream, causing it to have obvious edges when it flowed. It looked very sharp. It was clearly water, but it shone with the cold light of a sword, making people not dare to approach it. And the stream was a watershed, because on the other side of the stream, there was a layer of pure white snow. The howling cold wind could be seen with the naked eye, causing the snow to dance in the air. There, that is the main mountain of the Mota Mountains. Gregory raised his hand and pointed at the tallest mountain. With Gu Mengmeng's eyesight, she could barely make out a silhouette in the wind and snow. As for the situation at the bottom of the mountain, she had no idea at all. Because the so-called mountain range was stacked on top of one another, it was impossible to see the whole picture clearly. Gu Mengmeng frowned and poked Wabi-ai with her elbow. "Little shit, look at that tallest mountain. Doesn't it look a little familiar?" Wabi-ai's gaze was also very deep as he looked at the mountain. After a long while he nodded and said, "Gu Tumeng, I have a very strange feeling. I feel that I should go over, but I also feel a little resistant." Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and looked at Wabi-ai. "What do you mean? Speak human language." Wabi-ai pursed his lips and shook his head lightly. Wabi-ai was never serious when he was with Gu Mengmeng. His sudden seriousness made Gu Mengmeng very uncomfortable and uneasy. She patted Wabi-ai's shoulder and said, "If you feel uneasy, don't go over. Wait for me here. I will come back to meet you after retrieving the love of the sky." Wabi-ai hesitated for a moment before revealing his trademark unruly smile. "If I admit defeat here and let you face danger alone, How will I face him in the future? He, of course, was referring to Snake. He had also said the same thing when they were at the bottom of the sea. Even though his body had been corroded by the poison until his bones were exposed, he had still forced himself to protect Gu Mengmeng and bring her in. Chapter 1455. Gregory looked at everyone and said, "It is impossible for a beast to reach the height of the Mota Mountains. Even for me, it is not easy to reach the peak. Bringing her alone is already my limit. I cannot bring all of you along. If you cannot reach the peak, there is no point in you all going in. Why don't you wait here?" Gregory's words were considered polite. After crossing a small stream, they would be entering the Mota Mountains. And the weather in the Mota Mountains was much harsher than the winter in the beast world. Elvis was a beast king and Leah was a 5th-level snow fox. The two of them might be able to hold on for a while, but Wabi was a snake. Once he entered, he would be frozen stiff and enter hibernation. And the Mota Mountains were sealed in ice all year round, which meant Wabi could forget about waking up once he fell asleep. No matter how strong Oriton was, he was just a 3rd-level tiger beast. If he could not withstand the attacks of the Mota Mountains, he would definitely die. No way. Leah waved his tail and chuckled. "I will follow you in and wait for you at the foot of the mountain." "We're in the same line," Elvis said simply. They could not fly, so there was really no other way. But for them to throw Gu Mengmeng into danger alone while they waited in a comfortable place, this kind of thing, they could not do. Wabi stared at the tall mountain covered by the snow and was lost in thought. Only when Gu Mengmeng had decided for him and Oriton to wait here did he suddenly snap out of his trance. He pulled Gu Mengmeng's hand and said, "Gu Tumeng, look at that mountain. Doesn't it look like my original form?" With that, Wabi reverted to his original form and coiled up in circles. He raised his upper body up high and opened his mouth wide, glaring at them as though he was ready to attack. Gu Mengmeng looked at Wabi and then at the mountain. Then she nodded in agreement. "You don't say, it does look a little like that. But don't all snakes look like this? If Snake was here he would probably look more like..." Wabi reverted to his human form and shook his head. He frowned. "No, that is me. You?" Gu Mengmeng was puzzled, but Wabi did not look like he was joking. After a moment of silence, Gu Mengmeng asked, "Little shit, do you have any impression of the Mota Mountains? Have you been here before?" Wabi shook his head and said, "I have no impression at all after I was born. Everything I remember started with Snake. By right, snakes have inherited memories, but I have no impression of my father's generation, and everything in the past. It's as if my life only started when I left the Mecca Desert with Snake, and came to the Snake King Valley." This was very strange indeed. Gu Mengmeng patted Wabi's shoulder. "It's all right. Since you are so curious, let's go in together. If you are frozen, Lil Miss will carry you. Unless Lil Miss dies inside, otherwise, I will bring you out the way I brought you in." Wabi straightened his neck and sneered. "I am a male. Do I need you to carry me?" Only true friends would know how much trust there was behind such a provocative and contemptuous smile. He knew that even if he mutated into Godzilla in there, Gu Mengmeng would still knock him unconscious and bring him out. She would not leave him alone. Chapter 1456. In the end, Oriton had to wait here alone. Oriton was not a rash person. He knew his own capabilities and so didn't feel that it was embarrassing for him to be the only one outside after everyone else had gone in. Doing what he could and not causing trouble for others at the crucial moment was a form of maturity. Because Elvis, Leah and Wabi obviously couldn't ascend the mountain, they split up. Gregory carried Gu Mengmeng straight to the peak of the Mota Mountains, while Elvis, Leah and Wabi treaded through the snow. As the saying goes, kneel before a dead horse at the sight of a mountain. It was clearly right in front of you, but after running for so long, it felt like you weren't getting any closer. In addition, it was already difficult to advance in the snow, so your speed was naturally limited. Elvis and Leah couldn't bear for Gu Mengmeng to follow them and suffer needlessly, so they naturally agreed with Gregory's suggestion to let him carry Gu Mengmeng up the mountain. It didn't matter if they still hadn't reached the Mota Mountains after Gu Mengmeng retrieved the love of the sky. Anyway, Gregory had good eyesight and would definitely discover them on the way back. Previously, Gu Mengmeng felt a little guilty about riding on Gregory's back. She was afraid that she would affect Gregory's search for a wife in the future. But now, the marriage had already been decided, and it was already delayed. Gu Mengmeng didn't argue any further, and just laid on Gregory's back. She instructed Elvis and Leah to take good care of Wabi, and not let him die in the snowstorm on the Mota Mountains. It was rare that Wabi didn't explode in anger. He just stared fixedly at the mountain. Gregory's original body was huge, so when Gu Mengmeng laid on his back, she would be covered by the feathers on the outside. Her entire body would be wrapped by the fur on the surface of his skin, allowing his body warmth to protect her from the cold wind. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but Gu Mengmeng felt that Gregory's back was wider and warmer than the previous time he brought her to the Mota Mountains. The tension in his muscles became more obvious when he flapped his wings. Gu Mengmeng could feel his movements and her heart couldn't help but jump. With a change in status, his mood would also be different. Even though she knew he was just a 10-year-old child, Gu Mengmeng still blushed in embarrassment. Gu Mengmeng's vision was obstructed and she couldn't see what was happening outside. She only felt that Gregory, who had been flying steadily, suddenly adjusted his angle and flew straight into the sky. Gu Mengmeng instinctively grabbed onto his feathers and screamed in shock. Gregory replied with a chirp. Gu Mengmeng could not understand what he was saying, but she felt strangely at ease. She thought that it was probably comforting words like, "Don't be afraid. Even if you fall, I will catch you." Gu Mengmeng chuckled. That's true. The sky was Gregory's territory. There would be no problem no matter how she jumped. Gradually calming down, Gu Mengmeng then realized that she had grabbed him a little too harshly. The roots of Gregory's feathers were bleeding, so she asked softly, "Does it hurt?" I. Gregory didn't reply to her. He probably understood that she wouldn't understand even if he replied, so he might as well save his energy and continue rushing upwards. Chapter 1457. The oxygen was getting thinner, and Gu Mengmeng's body could not handle such a speed. She held on tightly to Gregory's feathers, her face turning pale due to the lack of oxygen. Her consciousness slowly drifted away and finally, Gu Mengmeng fainted. His body slid down unconsciously and Gregory felt a strange movement on his back. He instinctively turned around and dove down, catching Gu Mengmeng steadily. So his sharp claws hurt her, and he could only use his back to fly horizontally to catch her. Flying straight up was the simplest and fastest way. But she had fainted and could no longer hold onto his feather to stabilize her body. So Gregory had to fly in a roundabout way. This method of flying was much more difficult than flying straight up, and the increase in the flying distance due to the environment would cause the danger factor and fatigue index to increase exponentially. But Gregory would rather grit his teeth and fly forward in the cold wind than use his claws to grab Gu Mengmeng and fly straight up. Because if he grabbed her and flew, she would be injured if one side of his strength was slightly off. Secondly, without the protection of his feathers, she would be exposed to the cold wind. That knife-like wind cut his body in pain. If it were to cut her body, he did not even dare to think about it. So this was the feeling of not being able to bear to part with her. He would rather be smashed into pieces than let a single strand of her hair be hurt. Even if she, who had already fainted, did not know what kind of pain and suffering he had gone through. Just like what Gregory said himself, birds had their own pride. He would show her his strong self and let her accept him because he was an outstanding male. But he would not show his misery to gain sympathy. He wanted to spread his wings and shield her from all the wind and snow, so that her world only had sunny days. When Gu Mengmeng woke up, it was already evening. They stopped in a spacious cave, and Gregory was using an ice cup to feed Gu Mengmeng. Seeing that Gu Mengmeng had opened her eyes, he secretly heaved a sigh of relief. "How are you? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Gu Mengmeng shook her head. She was actually still very weak. Her forehead and temples were throbbing in pain. She was tired and had difficulty breathing. This was a classic case of altitude sickness. She was not used to this altitude. Most people would recover in 3 to 10 days. She had snake strength supporting her body, and would be fine after 1 or 2 days. But Elvis and Leah were not around, so Gu Mingming could not be unreasonable towards Gregory. How should she put it? Although Gregory was now a member of her family in name, Gu Mingming really could not see him as a partner. Some unreasonable feelings could only be displayed in front of Elvis and Leah. Let's put it this way, when Elvis and Leah were around, Gu Mingming was a weak lady, who could not even open a bottle of mineral water. But when they were not around, Gu Mingming could carry a bucket of water up to 3 floors without panting. Although there were females on the Mota Mountains, as a tribe leader with an engagement, Gregory had almost no experience in interacting with females. He had fallen into Gu Mingming's hands the first time he left the mountains, so his love experience was equivalent to 0. He did not have Snake's inherited memories, and did not even have Elvis and Lee's familiarity and influence, so he did not know how to please a female. But he knew one thing: Gu Mingming was not willing to rely on him. Digression. Chapter 1458. Just say it if you're uncomfortable. There's no need to force yourself. Gregory frowned. He was just a 3rd-level orc, but his tone was so mature that Gu Mingming wanted to shout, "Master is right." "You're right." Gu Mingming smiled and said, "I'm just not used to this height, so I don't have much strength. I'm really fine, just bear with it and it will be over." Gregory didn't say anything else and just looked at Gu Mingming quietly. He remembered that when she drank a mouthful of water in solder, she would stick out her tongue pitifully and whine to Leah in pain. This made Leah hug her and blow at her to coax and comfort her. He had to comfort her properly. When she was weaving a praying mat with tree vines, she was accidentally pricked by the thorny vines, and a drop of blood flowed out. It was no exaggeration, just 1 drop. She even said that she was afraid that the thorns would enter her body through her blood vessels and forcefully squeeze it out. In the end, Elvis frowned and was about to scold her when she preemptively pretended to cry. She shrugged her shoulders and stretched out her fingers to scream in pain, even though she did not have a single tear. His heart ached so much that he could only hug her and coax her first. All the words he wanted to scold her were stuck in his throat, and in the end, every tree vine that Gu Mingming wanted to use had to be rubbed 8 times with his bare hands to ensure that there were no thorns left before entering Gu Mingming's hands. Such a Gu Mingming was telling him, "Bear with it and it will be over." Putting Gu Mingming down, Gregory spread his wings and flew into the snowstorm. Gu Mingming didn't know what was wrong with Gregory. She had already tried her best not to create trouble for him, but why did he still look unhappy? Sigh. The so-called family still needed time to get used to each other. Gu Mingming really did not have much energy, and after Gregory left, she did not force herself to stay awake anymore. She just lay by the fire and fell asleep again. Actually, Gregory was still quite meticulous. A fire was lit in the cave, and a stone pot was added on top of the fire. Needless to say, this was what Leah had taught him. As Gu Mingming had a nosebleed easily, water had to be boiled on top of the fire to use the steam to moisturize the air and maintain the humidity. A thick beast skin was laid beside the fire, and the distance was just right so that it would not be dangerous if it was too close and not too far away for Gu Mingming to freeze. There were rows of ice cups at the entrance of the cave. Gu Mingming just had to pour the hot water from the pot into the ice cups, and she would be able to drink the warm water immediately. Moreover, the ice cups were made from the extremely clean ice from the Mota Mountains. It had a sharp sweetness to it, and if one was not afraid of the cold, it would taste like rock candy when chewing on it. But Gu Mingming did not want to eat cold food now. She just wanted to sleep. Elvis and Leah were not around, but Gregory, who was taking care of Gu Mingming personally for the first time, did not let her suffer at all. She was in a daze and did not know how long she had slept. Feeling someone patting her lightly, she opened her eyes in a daze. Gregory scooped a Schweling fruit from a slightly bigger ice cup and passed it to Gu Mingming. The fruits you like to eat can only be found during winter outside, but there are plenty of them on Mota Mountains. And tu. Chapter 1459. Gu Mingming wanted to reject him. She felt that this position was too ambiguous. Other than Leah and Elvis, she could not accept anyone else hugging her like this. Really, it was extremely awkward. Gregory could tell that she wanted to struggle, and did not force her. He just said calmly, "The temperature here is much lower than the ground. You will get frostbite if you don't cover yourself with beast skin. Elvis and Leah are not around. Although I am just a guardian beast, I have the responsibility to protect and take care of you. I'm just feeding you a few fruits. You don't have to reject me so much. I can also recognize my own position." Gu Mengmeng actually did not think so much. Everything she did was just out of instinct. She felt a little embarrassed after being reminded by Gregory. She had ruined his reputation and ruined his entire life. She originally wanted to treat him better, but she forgot that in the beast world, not causing trouble for others was not a virtue. Only by continuously acting, being unreasonable and unreasonable, ordering men around like servants and becoming even more unreasonable, would the males feel safe and blissful. He would then say with a smile, "Look, my female is so reliant on me. She gave me so many chances to prove that I love her." Sighing, Gu Mengmeng opened her mouth to take the Xueling fruit from Gregory's hands. Then she smiled and said, "Thank you." Gregory smiled faintly and sighed. He asked as if he was talking to himself, "Do you also say thank you to Leah and Elvis?" Gu Mengmeng thought for a while and shook her head. She said, "I did in the past, but I slowly got used to it. Thinking about it, it's really been a long time since I said thank you to them." The answer made Grace feel a little better. She did not say thank you to him because she was estranged. She was just not used to his care. If he had a long time and many chances to take care of her, maybe she would accept it as a matter of course, just like how she treated Leah and Elvis. Eat another one. With that, Gregory plucked another Xueling fruit and passed it to Gu Mengmeng. He watched her swallow it. He then asked, "Do you feel better after eating this?" Gu Mengmeng nodded. She leaned against Gregory's chest lazily. She said, "I just don't have any energy. But this Xueling fruit is really refreshing. I don't feel so disgusted after eating it. It's quite comfortable." Gregory smiled at Gu Mengmeng's words and said, "If you like, I can pick fresh ones for you every day. But you can't eat too much at one time. Otherwise it will be too cold and your stomach will feel uncomfortable." Gu Mengmeng wanted to tell him not to trouble himself, but after some thought, she decided not to. If braving the wind and snow to pick fruits for her to eat could make him feel happy, then so be it. After all, Gu Mengmeng really could not do the kind of pretentious things she did to Elvis and Leah in front of the 10-year-old Gregory. She avoided Sandy, but she did not avoid Gregory. In the end, she still became a strange auntie. Sigh, what a tragic fate. I just went out to take a look. The wind around Love of the Sky has weakened a lot. It's estimated that the wind will stop and the snow will melt in 7 days. But you only have half a day's time. Leave Moda mountain range immediately after taking it, understand? Gu Mengmeng turned back to look at Gregory in confusion. Why do we have to leave immediately? Chapter 1460. Gu Mengmeng thought about it. Perhaps it would be like how Sun Wukong obtained the ocean stabilizing needle. After Gu Mengmeng obtained the love of the sky, the Mota mountains would also shake? But luckily, all the birds living here were birds, so they should not be buried alive. Her father also said that after she obtained the love of the sky, she would become the owner of the birds and all the birds would follow by her side. With that thought, Gu Mengmeng discussed with Gregory. My father, who is the mighty beast deity, he told me that after I obtain the love of the sky, the birds will recognize me as their owner and follow by my side. So I was thinking, how about we bring the birds from the Mota Mountains to settle down in Saint Nazaire? Although Sauter's territory is bigger, but to be honest, there are already the Wolf Clan, the Fox Clan and the 16 tribes there. The situation is extremely chaotic. If you birds, who have been living in seclusion for so many years, join in, you might just become cannon fodder. It's better for you to follow me back to Saint Nazaire. I always feel that the people from Saint Nazaire are the easiest to get along with. This keyword was enough to convince Gregory to do anything. Nodding with a smile, Gregory said, You are the head of the household, I will naturally listen to you. Gu Mengmeng did not say anything that would hurt their relationship. 7 days, 7 days. Gu Mengmeng leaned into Gregory's arms and gradually fell asleep. When she opened her eyes again, it was already the next morning. Gregory was roasting a wild rabbit. He had flown out of the Moda Mountains to look for Oriton last night. At the same time, he had also brought back other prey, but he had thrown them to Elvis and the rest along the way. He only brought back 2 rabbits for Gu Mengmeng to eat. After Gu Mengmeng washed up with water from an ice cup, she hopped over to sit beside Gregory. Resting her chin on her hands, she looked at Gregory who was roasting the rabbit and smiled. You learn really fast. You are as talented as Leah in cooking. But Elvis can't do it. He and Snake are both kitchen killers. Any fresh ingredients can be made into dark cuisine. Snake once roasted meat for me and I almost died from it. Hearing Gu Mengmeng's incessant chatter, Gregory suddenly smiled. Gu Mengmeng rarely saw Gregory smile. Most of the time, he had a stern face like a teacher. Even if he smiled, it was just a slight twitch of his lips. Therefore, this smile was rare. What are you laughing at? Gu Mengmeng also laughed, her eyes filled with curiosity. Gregory looked back at Gu Mengmeng. I'm laughing at how noisy you are. Gu Mengmeng wrinkled her nose and said, Are you praising me? Why doesn't it sound like it? If you think I'm too noisy, then I'll speak less. Gregory shook his head and said, No, you quarrel very well. Ha! Gu Mengmeng did not understand what Gregory was thinking. Gregory tore off a leg from the roasted rabbit and handed it to Gu Mengmeng for her to eat first. Then he placed the water back on the fire and said, In the past, there was only the sound of the wind blowing and snow falling on the Moda Mountains. I'm used to this kind of silence and never felt that it was inappropriate. I even thought that I liked this kind of silence. But Chapter 1461. You like crowds? Then the next time I bring you back to St. Nazaire, when the 16 valued members gather together, damn, that scene is comparable to a large-scale market. Gu Mengmeng chuckled. Gregory nodded with a smile and said, Okay. He did not tell Gu Mengmeng that he was actually used to being quiet, but he felt good when she was noisy. He did not like noises other than hers. After breakfast, Gregory gave Gu Mengmeng 10 Schweling fruits that he had just plucked today. Eating barbecued meat early in the morning was indeed too oily for Gu Mengmeng. So eating a few fruits was just nice to clear her mouth. The next time you pluck fruits, bring me along. I want to admire the scenery of the Mota Mountains. Gu Mengmeng said as she ate. Gregory thought for a moment, then shook his head in rejection, saying, The wind outside is too strong, you will damage the house. Seeing her frown, his heart ached a little, so he added, 6 days later, won't the Moda Mountains have half a day without wind or snow? You can admire the scenery then. Hearing Gregory's words, Gu Mengmeng became even more excited about what would happen 6 days later. After obtaining the love of the sky, she could go home and give birth to little foxes. Her family would become more and more lively. Hutta and his brothers were growing too fast and could no longer play with her. She had to hurry and give birth to a nest of cute buns. Feeling happy, Gu Mengmeng could not help but start humming. That tuneless song made Gregory mesmerized. When Gu Mengmeng realized that Gregory was staring at her in a daze, half a day had already passed. Hey, come back to your senses. Gu Mengmeng stretched out 5 fingers and waved them in front of Gregory. Only then did Gregory return to his senses. He cleared his throat awkwardly and said, I didn't expect you to know how to sing. Gu Mengmeng's eyes brightened and she looked at Gregory saying, Oh yes, I heard from Leah that the males from your bird tribe can also sing. Gregory nodded and said, It's just not as good as yours. Gu Mengmeng hugged her knees and looked at Gregory. Sing one for me. Gregory did not hesitate and nodded his head. He hugged Gu Mengmeng in his arms and whispered a tune into her ear. It was a light and deep melody, as if he was playing a famous piece on an ancient European piano. It was not surging and passionate, but every note touched her heart. He did not utter a single word throughout and only hummed softly, but Gu Mengmeng was intoxicated. He embraced her and swayed gently to the rhythm, as if they were dancing together. After humming the song, Gu Mingming could not stop herself and looked at Gregory with an intoxicated gaze. Grace was drunk and lost in her eyes. The corners of his lips curled up unconsciously. At that moment, she was the only one in his eyes. "You like it?" Grace whispered. Gu Mingming nodded her head without hesitation. Then, she mimicked Gregory's tone and hummed a few lines, but to no avail. She could not hum out the kind of charm he had. There was not a single word, but it was filled with deep emotions. She could never learn it. Courtesy demands reciprocity. "I will sing a song for you too," Gu Mingming said with a smile. Chapter 1462. Gu Mingming thought for a while and sang, "Just happened to meet you." The only races in the beast world who could sing were the females of the mermaids and males of the birds, but the songs they could sing had no lyrics. So although Gu Mingming's singing was different from Gregory's, it was rare. Moreover, the cave formed a unique echo chamber, adding to the quality of the singing. Gregory was smiling the entire time, smiling especially blissfully. There was no other reason other than there was only him and Gu Mingming here. Every single note that Gu Mingming sang was for him. In the bird tribe, singing was a form of courtship. Of course, he knew that Gu Mingming was not clear, but it was enough for him to deceive himself into believing that this was Gu Mingming's confession to him. Just like that, it was enough. Everything was worth it. On the 5th day, Gu Mingming's altitude sickness had completely recovered. Having regained her energy, she was eager to try again. She started drawing on the walls of the cave out of boredom. At the start, she drew some messy secret martial arts books, which were actually just matchstick men fighting without any style. Then, she suggested drawing a portrait for Gregory, to which Gregory was naturally willing to cooperate. So Gu Mingming tried to find light and made Gregory change his style. Finally, she posed him sitting sideways at the entrance of the cave, gazing into the distance with an unfathomable look. But Gu Mingming was not a child who had learned how to draw. She tried her best and finally drew Gregory into crayon Shinchan. Done? Gregory stood up and walked over when he saw Gu Mingming keeping her pen. "Don't move." Gu Mingming waved her hand and rejected him. Hearing that, Gregory really stopped moving. He smiled and asked, "What's the matter?" Gu Mingming used her body to block the drawing tightly and said awkwardly, I didn't finish it. Why don't we not look at it?" Gregory chuckled and said, "It's fine no matter how you draw it." With that, Gregory took another 2 steps forward, and was already in front of Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming's back was pressed against the wall, blocking the crayon Shinchan has something on his mind, drawing completely. She raised her head and the tip of her nose was pressed against Gregory's chest muscles. Gregory supported himself against the wall with one hand, and placed the other on Gu Mingming's shoulder. He looked down from the back of her neck, trying to find out what was going on. He didn't mean to do it. But in modern times this position was called wall drumming. Gu Mingming blushed. She felt that her heart might not be able to take it if this went on, so she admitted defeat and said, "Then step back, I'll talk to you." Gregory took a step back and smiled at Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming swallowed her saliva and said, "Look, you can look. But you have to promise me that you can't get angry when you see it. We're still friends." Gregory sighed helplessly and said, "I'm your guardian beast, not your friend." I just can't get angry." Gu Mingming's main point was not her identity, alright? Gregory pondered for a while and said, "What if I get angry? Do you know how to coax me?" "I will. After all, I'm in the wrong." Before she could finish her sentence, Gregory laughed and said, "Then I'll get angry." Getting angry before even looking at it? Gu Mingming looked at Gregory with her eyes wide open. Gregory tapped Gu Mingming's wrinkled nose and said, "I want to be coaxed by you once, just once will do. Don't worry, as long as you coax me, I won't be angry anymore and I'll listen to everything you say. How about that?" Aside from the topic, who was so nice? He gave Susu 5 tickets at the beginning of the month. Thank you, big baby. Chapter 1463. Really? Gu Mingming was doubtful. Gregory smiled and nodded, promising, I promise you with the pride of the bird's tribe, if I go back on my words, let me break my wings and be blind, never to fly again. Gu Mingming covered Gregory's mouth, laughing awkwardly. Don't swear so recklessly, it's not worth it. I'll just show you, spit a mouthful of saliva, and say that the oath you made just now doesn't count. Gregory didn't know that ever since snakes cut open his chest and take out his gallbladder became a maxim, Gu Mingming had been traumatized by oaths. Every time she heard someone say such a vicious oath, she would feel terrible, really terrible. Gregory only knew that Gu Mingming's soft and fragrant hand had automatically pressed against his face, covering his mouth, her exquisite little face looking at him anxiously, as if he was an important person. She was worried for him, afraid that his oath would come true. But was she a fool? He was not angry at her at all. Even if she had drawn him as a green-faced, fanged monster, as long as it was drawn by her, he would find it pleasing to the eye. Actually, he did not even need to coax her, he would not blame her at all. He only wanted to deceive her to coax him once. How could the vow come true? Pulling her little hand away from his mouth, Gregory looked back at her with a gentle gaze, using his mellow voice to whisper, "The vulture tribe has never gone back on their words. But you still said you wouldn't like me back then, and told me to give up early. Isn't it a slap in the face now? I don't care, spit a mouthful of saliva and say it again." Other than Elvis and Leah, Gu Mingming rarely said such willful words to others, and it was not common for her to be so stubborn for no reason. She did not know why, but she felt that Gregory's oath made her extremely uneasy. Break his wings and be blind, damn. How similar was it to Snake's act of cutting open his chest and taking out his gallbladder? She could no longer bear the burden of a human life on her shoulders. She would rather bear the title of a strange auntie, a big scumbag, and drag Gregory along with her family of 3 to lead a good life. As long as she could live safely, it was fine. Gregory looked at Gu Mingming with a gaze full of joy, not the slightest bit angry that she had exposed his shortcomings. On the contrary, he was extremely happy. She was acting shamelessly, wasn't she? That dignified Gu Mingming, who always put on the airs of a messenger of the beast deity, always smiled gently to her friends, and was cold and contemptuous to her enemies, was acting shamelessly like a child in front of him, right? He had only seen this adorable look of hers when she was in Leah and Elvis's arms. Now she was willing to throw a tantrum in front of him, right? A smile spread across his lips and eyes. Gregory nodded with an indulgent and doting smile and said, "All right, it's up to you. Then hurry up and spit." Gu Mingming straightened her neck and demanded, "Bah." Gregory spat to the side and said, "What I said just now doesn't count. Please pretend you didn't hear it." Gu Mingming cleared her throat, looked up at the sky and said, "Father, watch your television series properly. Just treat that thing just now as a small advertisement, cut it and don't broadcast it. You didn't see anything and you didn't hear anything. Do you understand?" Gregory did not understand what Gu Mingming was saying, and only felt that she was extremely cute. Chapter 1464. Gu Mingming was afraid that if she did not get up, Gregory would say things like broken wings and blind eyes again, so she did not try to hide anymore and slowly moved to the side. That crayon Shinchan has something on his mind. Picture appeared in front of Gregory. Gu Mingming carefully observed Gregory's expression. Seeing that he was still smiling and did not look unhappy, she finally heaved a sigh of relief. How should she put it? The tolerance of males in the beast world towards females was as wide as the Pacific Ocean. Gregory tilted his head to look at Gu Mingming and said, "Can I be angry now?" "Huh." Gu Mingming was at a loss and said, "Is it really ugly?" Gregory shook his head and said, "It's not ugly, it's very cute. But I want you to coax me, so can I be angry now?" Was there a need for approval to be angry? If she said not to be angry, would he not be angry? Gu Mingming felt a little helpless. She had almost forgotten how lowly the males in the beast world were. Before she mated with Elvis and Leah, the two of them were also like Gregory. They always acted according to her wishes, and were careful in everything. After mating, they were always worried that she would abandon them. Especially Elvis, he was so shocked when she went into the water to touch a lotus root. It was only after experiencing so many things that they believed that she loved them and would not abandon them that they gradually became bolder. While spoiling her, they were also controlling her. She was not afraid of him. Until now, Gu Mengmeng had forgotten that in the beast world, males had to be so careful in front of females they liked, as if they were walking on thin ice. Didn't he just want her to act coquettishly and coax him? What was so difficult about it? Gu Mengmeng took a step forward and wrapped her arms around Gregory's arm, shaking it left and right. She looked up at Gregory with her big watery eyes and said with a trembling voice, don't be angry." Gregory's iron bones were melted by Gu Mengmeng's A suspicious pink color crept up the tip of his ears and Gregory coughed guiltily. He looked to the side and did not dare to look at Gu Mengmeng again. He was the one who expected her to act coquettishly, but she really did it, and he did not dare to look at her. His heart was beating so hard that it felt like it was going to burst out of his chest. He wanted to withdraw his hand from her arm, but he couldn't bear to part with that gentleness. He could only nod woodenly and said, "And I'm not angry." After Gu Mengmeng realized that Gregory got shy easily, she liked to tease him more and more. Whenever he blushed and could not do anything to her, she would laugh heartily. There were still 4 days until the wind stopped. The sound of birds chirping came from outside the cave. Gregory frowned and replied, "Got it. You guys go first, I'll be there soon." Gu Mengmeng could not understand the chirping of birds, but seeing that Gregory did not look too good, she asked, "What's wrong? Did something happen?" For the past 3 days, Gregory had gotten used to fetching prey from Oriton every morning and helping Gu Mengmeng pluck Xueling fruits on the way back. Then he would roast the fruits to warm himself up and hug her for the entire day, not wanting to let go. At this moment, he was feeding Gu Mengmeng Xueling fruits and was not in a good mood after being interrupted. I don't want to let her go, not even for a second. But he was the tribe leader after all. He had to handle all the matters on Mota Mountains. Frowning, Gregory nodded and said, "Wait for me in the cave, I'll be back soon." Chapter 1465. Gregory really wanted to kiss her before he left like Elvis and Leah, but he knew that as a guardian beast, he did not have the right to do so. Being able to hug her like this was already a benefit that he cheated by using the low temperature as an excuse. Back on land, or rather, if any of her partners were here, it would not be up to him as a guardian beast to hug her. There were only 4 days left of such solitude, but some of it had to be taken away by trivial matters. He was unhappy but helpless. Hugging her tightly, he said in a low voice, "Wait for me to come back." Gu Mengmeng instinctively replied, but after replying, she found it funny. She was not sure how high the altitude was here, but she reckoned that she would not reach the ground even if she jumped today. She did not want to court death, so she had no other choice but to wait for him to come back. Gregory wanted to end this quickly, so he wrapped Gu Mengmeng tightly in the beast's skin, hugged her again, and left decisively. Looking at Gregory's back view, Gu Mengmeng clicked her tongue. She had to admit, he was so damn handsome. Grace was gone for most of the day. She did not feel it when he was around, but now that she was alone, Gu Mengmeng was really not used to it. It seemed that ever since she transmigrated to the beast world, she rarely stayed alone like this. Previously in Saint Nazaire, there was a period when Elvis and Leah were very busy, so she was alone at home. But during that period, Leah had also arranged for Mandy to accompany her and chat with her. And that was on land. Even if no one accompanied her, there were still many things she could do. But here Gu Mengmeng looked around. Although this cave was very spacious and had all the necessities, but when she was alone, it seemed so cold and lonely. When Gregory was with her, she felt that the snowstorm outside was very majestic, but when she looked at it alone, why did it seem so desolate? Gu Mengmeng wrapped herself in the beast's skin and sat at the entrance of the cave. She could not help but think, has Gregory been sitting here alone for the past 10 years, looking at this boundless world covered in pure white snow? Other than this endless white, is there anything else in his world? Suddenly feeling her heart ache, Gu Mengmeng chuckled. It seemed like it was not a bad thing to take Gregory in as a family member. After all, if she did not want him, He could only return to the Mota Mountains and continue to face this empty white for the rest of his life. Chirp! A long cry, accompanied by the howling of the wind and the shrill of cranes, was heard. Gu Mingming could recognize that it was Gregory's original form. Before she could even smile and say, "You're back," she was enveloped by a gust of cold air. Her chest was pressed against a scorching heat, and after a round of dizziness, the two of them rolled back into the cave. As he rolled, Gregory transformed back into his human form. Chapter 1466. You walked the entire day. I would have jumped long ago if I wanted to. Gu Mingming pushed Gregory and said, "Can you sit up first? It's quite heavy. I can't breathe with you pressing down on me like that." Only then did Gregory realize that his position with Gu Mingming was not appropriate. Although this position had appeared many times in his dreams, but he did not have the status to press down on her like that. Nodding his head, Gregory still stood up and carried Gu Mingming up from the ground into his arms. His back was facing the cave entrance and his face was facing Gu Mingming, as if he was guarding against her suddenly rushing out. Gu Mingming shook her head helplessly and said, "I already said a few times, the last time I jumped off the cliff, I was not really seeking death. I only jumped because I was sure that you would catch me. This time I came on my own accord. We are going to get the love of the sky in 4 days. Why would I jump off the cliff for no reason? I don't have a motive, right?" Thinking about it, Gregory felt that it made sense. He sighed and said, "Sorry, I was too nervous." Gu Mingming smiled and said, "It's normal, I am used to it. Elvis is the same too. He always feels that I am going to abandon him. Any dangerous move will successfully make him explode." Patting Gregory's shoulder, Gu Mingming smiled and said, "But you have to believe me, I don't have any masochistic tendencies. Seeking death is really not my hobby." Gregory was unwilling to admit that the scene of her jumping off the cliff with his own eyes had already left a shadow in his heart. The sky was originally where he was most at ease, but once he saw her near the cave entrance, every factor in his body would clamor for unease. He did not like himself who was so paranoid, but he could not help but like her, who made him become like this. Sighing silently, Gregory pulled Gu Mingming back into his arms and said, I know. He knew everything, but he could not help but worry. Just like someone once said, we all understand the logic, but we still cannot live this life well. It's very windy at the peak, it's too dangerous for you to sit there. Gregory tried his best to find a lame excuse. Gu Mingming chuckled and said, there is no scale here, but I know I have gained a lot of weight. When I first came to the beast world, I weighed around 120 kilograms. Previously, I took the clothes that Elvis had made for me when I had just transmigrated to this world and measured them. The measurements were about the same, but my muscle ratio was obviously higher than before. Therefore, in the case of the same body shape, the weight must have increased. Back then, a Category 18 typhoon could do nothing to me. Now it can't do anything to me. Ha 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 ha. Gu Mingming smiled like Dongfang Booby, extremely exaggerated. Because of her words, Gregory also laughed. He couldn't explain why, but seeing her laugh made his mood better. Seeing her like this, he finally felt at ease and believed that he had been worrying for nothing. Have you settled the matters in your tribe? Gu Mingming directly changed the topic of failed cliff jumping and asked about another matter. Gregory shook his head, his eyebrows unconsciously knitting together. Clearly, the matter seemed to be quite troublesome. Chapter 1467. The bird's tribe was more devoted to the beast deity than the other tribes. So to Gregory, Gu Mingming's words sounded a little rebellious and heinous. But the beast deity was still not as important as his own female. So Gregory did not reprimand Gu Mingming. He shook his head and said, I don't have to ask the beast deity about this, but I might have to ask you. Me. Gu Mingming pointed at her own nose and asked, why? Are the others from the bird's tribe objecting to me taking the love of the sky? Gregory shook his head and said, no, it has nothing to do with the love of the sky. Then what is it? Gu Mingming heaved a sigh of relief. As long as it did not interfere with her taking the love of the sky, everything else was fine. Gregory was a little hesitant, and said as if it was not a good time to speak. Do you still remember the female you sent to the Mota Mountains previously? Gu Mingming thought for a moment and said, Miranda? Gregory nodded and said, she is pregnant. Gu Mingming blinked and smiled awkwardly, saying, isn't it a good thing for a female to be pregnant? Why do you look unhappy, as if you have been cuckolded? Gregory did not know what cuckolded meant and did not mind. He just explained, she is not pregnant with a bird's child. Gu Mingming was taken aback. It was impossible for land beasts to come up to the Mota Mountains. Even if there was only a 1 in 10,000 chance, Elvis and Leah would not have allowed Gregory to bring her away without even trying. Land beasts could not come up and Miranda could not get out. Now that he said she was not pregnant with a bird's child, the only explanation was, she was pregnant before winter? Then, that time during the mass estrus? Damn. Gu Mingming held her forehead and looked at Gregory, saying, so? Gregory said, there have never been land beasts born on the Mota Mountains. Land beasts are unable to adapt to the climate on the Mota Mountains. Moreover, there are not enough resources here to support a young female. But Miranda has already mated with 9 male birds. Sending her back to land now is equivalent to turning these 9 birds into stray beasts. Birds are the most loyal to the beast deity. No matter what, they will never accept becoming stray beasts and delay the pride of the birds. So if Miranda is sent away, they will definitely crash their heads against the Mota Mountains and die to prove their loyalty, in order to protect the pride of the birds. Gu Mingming face-bombed. Why are you so stubborn? Can't you just go down the mountain with Miranda? Gregory shook his head, his gaze determined. The birds will not leave the Mota Mountains. But didn't you leave? Gu Mingming said. You have been living with us at the foot of the mountain for a while. You know, even if the birds descended the mountain, the sky did not collapse. Gregory sighed, shifted his gaze to the side and said, actually, Gu Mingming tilted her head, vaguely feeling that something was wrong. Gregory sighed and said, I did not want to tell you so early, but I can't hide it from you forever. Raising his head again, Gregory's gaze carried a tinge of pain. He said, I will not follow you to Saint Nazir. After you retrieve the love of the sky, I will send you down the mountain and leave the Mota Mountains, and I will return. You're tuning in to the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.